So, good evening, everyone. I warmly welcome you all to this very special Ask Me Anything session with two of our distinguished alumni from the first batch of the Kautilya School of Public Policy. It's an honor to be hosting this session today, and I hope it provides an engaging platform for all of you for learning and inspiration. Allow me to introduce myself before we dive into this session. My name is Purvasha Anand, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in public policy here at Kautilya. I've completed my bachelor's in history from University of Delhi, Kamla Nehru College, and spent a few years preparing for the civil services. And in 2023, I joined Kautilya, and I am specializing here in environmental, social, and governance issues, that is ESG, and business and government. Sorry. I'm also thrilled to share a personal news that I have been provided with a pre-placement offer at Cogtis ESG Mumbai, which I'll be joining soon. And now let's turn our attention to our amazing guests. First of all, I would like to introduce Ms. Aishwarya Srinivasan. Aishwarya holds a bachelor's degree in business administration, specializing in finance and financial management services from the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. Before joining Kautilya in 2021, she worked as an associate in corporate and college recruitment and outreach with Teach for India, where she developed skills in organizational outreach and stakeholder engagement. At Kautilya, she actively contributed to the academic ecosystem as a teaching assistant. Professionally, Aishwarya has interned at Nicor Associates, working on impactful research and with Youth Collab, a UNDP initiative for Asia and the Pacific. Currently, she is leading the policy and strategy vertical at the G. Narayanamma Institute of Technology and Sciences, where she is making a significant impact in the field of education policy. Welcome, Aishwarya, and thank you for joining us today. Next, I'm delighted to introduce Ms. Rehat Kaur. Rehat completed her bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Delhi. She joined Kautilya in 2021 to pursue her master's in public policy. Her dedication to addressing global challenges, particularly in climate change, was evident during her summer internship with the United Nations, where she worked in the climate change sector. Currently, Rehat is contributing her expertise as a consultant at EY, focusing on sustainability and climate change issues. Thank you, Rehat, for taking the time to be there to be here with us today. Just before we move on to the question
Thank you,
of the
Purvasha.
session,
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction.
thank you. Thank you. So, just a quick session guideline about this session before we move on to the question answer round. I would just like to tell everyone that this is going to be an audience focused session. So, whatever questions you have, please feel free to type it out in the chat box. And I'll just have a few questions with our alumni, and then I'll be heading to your questions. So, Rehat, my first question is to you. So your academic background is in political science, right? And now you're working in the sustainability domain at EY. Could you share your journey of making this transition and what motivated you to pursue this career path after completing your MPP at Kautilya?
So I think post my completing my bachelor's from University of Delhi, and I think the time I graduated from University of Delhi, I think during that time I had also done a couple of internships which were focused around the sector of climate change and child education. I think that was the focus time, and that was the point that led me to explore the area of public policy and international relations, and which is the time when I was actually looking to pursue a career in international relations per se, and I was applying for universities abroad, which is when I got to know about Kautilya. And I was glad to also know that they were also offering a specialization in international relations. So therein I enrolled for Kautilya, and I think my exposure at Kautilya, the internships that I did, like you mentioned, that I was also interning at United Nations, my projects at the internship place, all of them kind of culminated um, and brought together a perspective for me that led me to decide that I want to pursue a career in climate change and sustainability. So I think that would sum it up.
Okay. Thank you, Rehat. You summed it up really well. And yeah, so my next question is to Aishwarya. Aishwarya, because you're now leading policy and strategy at G. Narayanamma Institute of Technology and Sciences, could you share what your role entails in shaping policies within the private education sector? Because, as public policy enthusiasts, we have this perception that education, whenever we hear about education, it's always the state government or the union government that makes policies, and you're working in the private sector. So, what kind of policies can we, could a public policy enthusiast or those who want to pursue public policy, could they conceptualize when they think about educational reforms in the private sector or
Thank you for
policies in
that
the
question. I've been waiting for someone to ask me that for a very long time, because essentially it is what you're mentioning, right? We sort of have this narrative built and being propagated that public policy is to do, if you work with the government, is when you're doing it. And that sort of is where everyone is also attracted to, because it seemingly adds value to when you talk about it outside, right? And I think when all of us started, we also had the same idea in mind. But thankfully, this when this opportunity came by, it was at the heart of what I wanted to do, which was education and women, right? So what my job is at the core of it, it is to ensure that, one, whatever policies are already out there, right, when it comes to improving the number of women in STEM or improving research output of women, so on and so forth. One is, I, as a lead for policy and strategy, try to make those opportunities available to the young women and to our women faculty, right? I'm one of the people who does it. Of course, there are other ways to do it as well. But if it's a state government policy, if it's a union government policy, a lot of how to use that to empower the women is something that I definitely do. Second is, I am well positioned to give a policy recommendation because I see implementation happening firsthand, right? So if there is something coming our way saying, universities should do this, I'm in a very good position to tell them, this is not going to work, do it this way. This is definitely going to show you results, right? So policy makers, of course, that's the position you get to after a certain point of time in your life. But just because you've studied public policy does not mean you cannot make an impact wherever you are, especially when it comes to a private sector, right? And I don't think universities or colleges per se have somebody doing policy. I think Geetam and mine are the only places we are. Everybody who meets me and who's asked me, what is it that I do? And if they hear the word policy and strategy, they take a few minutes to process what I've said, because they've never heard someone sort of doing this at a college, at a university level. So at present, given at any given point of time, the skilling of 4,000 young girls in STEM and about 200 faculty members, opportunities for them is my responsibility. So so for anyone who is interested, who feels like the only option is to work with government or government bodies, no, you have other options. It's how you are able to communicate impact at the end of the day that makes a difference, right? So yeah, I hope I answered that question. You can ask me follow-ups if you want.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your insights with us. That was really remarkable. And I think it actually it must have broadened our perspective when it comes to the private sector and how it can contribute to educational policies and actually implementing what the objectives of government are at the national level or at the state level. So my next question to both of you actually is that having transitioned to the working space now, which subjects or skills are taught at Kautilya at a college do you find most relevant to your job? And what advice would you give to current students on areas to focus on during their MPP course? Aishwarya, would you like to go first? Or where?
I was going to let the younger one do it.
Sorry, you can go ahead.
Okay, all right. So, see, for me, I think my specialization was governance in society and development economics. So, for me, it's not so much the subjects per se, because everything culminates to a few particular objectives which will come in handy. But it's about the skills that are very important, right? Because even if you, let's say, and it's true for all jobs, even if you're not in the area that you have either worked in or you have studied in, You can pick up on the job. You can learn the domain. You can understand on the job. That's not a problem. But what becomes an issue is skill, right? So you need to be very good at analysis. If you're, I mean, if it's a research job, definitely you have to know your math. You need to be very good with analysis. You need to understand your research methodology. You need to understand what approaches to take, contextually what makes sense to you, how to do impact evaluations, right? Econometrics becomes a very important subject to focus on, which even I had. Now, in a job like mine, while you don't need core technical skills in terms of econometrics, but you do need skills where you're able to communicate well, where you're able to sort of analyze what impact has happened, because you have to tell them what's working, what's not working, right? At the end of the day, I'm advising the head of the institution what to do, what not to do. So on what basis am I saying it? So I have to be very, very clear on what I'm saying, because they will work basis that. So a big responsibility is on you to be able to clarify your point of view, correct? How do you strategize? Because one of the things which becomes important as a public policy student, public policy professional, is when you're creating policies, it's not about what you're writing down, what should happen. You have to be able to give an implementation strategy. If you're not able to do that, it's as good as just something that's there out there which I can't use. It's not any good to me. So when I am talking about implementing something on the campus for the students, if it's an industry academia interface, if I'm trying to bring industry experts to skill the students, how do we do that, right? So you have to be able to understand the context of what you're doing. You have to be able to analyze everything well. Whatever strategy you are suggesting, you have to understand whether it's feasible or not, right? So feasibility analysis becomes a big problem, a big thing to focus on. You should be able to write well. I mean, I don't think I have to say that separately. It's a given today. And yeah, I mean, you should be able to network. You should be able to make very meaningful connections. Don't network because you have to. The number of followers don't make any difference. It's the critical people who will help you make something happen, right? Yeah, I think whatever I've said is something you'll need at any point in time. These are skills that you absolutely need to have. And I don't think domain expertise, domain knowledge is so much of an issue, because once you're on the job, you're thrown in the deep end, you learn how to swim. So that's perfectly all right. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Aishwarya. Rehat, would you like to
I'm really
share your
sorry. I
insight?
think I dropped out in
Yeah,
the
it's fine.
middle. Yeah,
It's fine.
but all right. I think there were two main subjects that really had a profound impact on me. One was, I think, the course taken by Professor Glenn Crammond, Winning Writing. I'm not sure if it is still taught, but that one really had a great impact on me, because I think what I learned out of that subject was really on how I network with people, how I communicate with my team members, how I really present myself, or with the way I connect with my seniors and engage with my clients. And the second one was public policy dissemination technique that was undertaken by Professor Steve Jarding. So I think those really majorly had a great impact on the way I communicate. And also, I think even though I did not pay a lot of attention to it, but I think courses on data um, and behavioral economics or big debates on
Right.
development. I think, how you understand economics also in the space of sustainability, I think that really helps a lot.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Rehat. So Aishwarya, since you mentioned about networking, I just have a question about networking and mentorship. So they are often cited as critical to career advancement. Could each of you share one strategy or habit that helped you to build a strong professional network early in your career? Because Rehat, you just started working. Aishwarya, I know she's worked before, even before joining Kautilya. So if you could just give one piece of advice or a habit or a strategy that has helped you in building a strong professional network early in your career, and how that network influenced your career decisions later on.
Neha, do you want to take this first?
All right, I'll go with it. So I have one instance to share basically, which I've mentioned because of uh, the course taken by Professor Kramen. So in one of his lectures, I think you can really back me up here. In one of his sessions, he mentioned that when you're cold calling or cold emailing somebody, make sure in case you have met them before, or if you have a picture taken with them or of them, use it to your advantage, use it at your disposal, and that's the way you could build lasting connections. That say if you've attended a seminar or a webinar and you basically conclude whatever they've said, if you resonate
Mm.
with something, make sure you put it out to the person you're sending an email to. So I did this at the end of my internship at the UN. We had somebody over, and I did not really get a chance to interact with them personally, but I was there to listen to them and what they were really trying to offer, since I was a lot into the sector of gender and climate, gender and society. So what I really implemented from that session was, if you have a picture with them, I took the picture, I sent it out to them, and I wrote them that
Mhm.
this is what I really liked about session. This is what I if they release, say, a handbook on something, this is what I liked about it. This is what I can
Mm.
offer. I think that further led me to um, connect with somebody who could offer me a placement opportunity, even though it
Right.
did not culminate into that for whatever reasons. But I would understand why Cortelia gave me an edge to
Mm.
that.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So, and through all those techniques, I really have been trying to build my network, my professional network, attend seminars, attend webinars. Um, for one thing, I don't know about freshers, but when I was a fresher, when I got into Cortelia, I personally had my doubts. I had my fears about inhibitions, about how do I approach people, what do I really talk to them about. But
Right.
I think once you throw yourself into that space, you only learn how people talk. So I
Mhm.
think that was one great advantage. Having professors from, say, professor in the Mead Guild, from the World Bank, or basically RBI governor. So what Kotadia basically offers you is just a pool of stalwarts and industrialists and people who really have the power to make an impact. So
Right.
connecting with them, I think, gave me an advantage, or gave me the space to look into or tap into areas that I wasn't looking at. So
Mm.
I think that really helped me a lot, and it still does whenever
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
approach it now.
Yeah. Thank you, Rayat, for this piece of advice. I mean, that's a great idea to actually build meaningful corrections, as
Hmm.
Aishwarya mentioned. Not just very transactional in nature, but when you're actually attending webinars or seminars, it's also a way to show that you're paying attention to what they're saying. You're not just there to attend the session just for the sake of it, right?
Yes.
Because I also have my own inhibitions because I'm just going to start my professional journey now. So I still have those inhibitions, to be honest. But I think your experiences did provide me with some encouragement to, post actually on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
Aishwarya, do you?
really,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to, reach out. That's my only
Mm,
learning. That's like, I think, 1.5 years of learning at
mm-hmm,
EY also. That don't really
mm-hmm,
be afraid
mm,
of what you're gonna put yourself out there. So yeah.
mm, That's a great piece of advice for me and for others as well. Yeah. What are your insights on
I
this?
think yes, Professor Kramen did do that with us, and I think when it comes to networking and making connections, it's everybody. Everybody's way is different. Everybody is different, so one thing is not going to work for the other. Definitely
Yes.
doesn't, and it's about the philosophy of how you make connections, right? Even if it sounds very fantasy in the way I say it, it's actually
Mm,
how what it boils down to. So for
mm-hmm,
me, while I am extroverted in general, I can't and I don't walk up to everybody wanting to make connections. I
mm,
find it very impossible physically for me to do it. And
right.
for me, if I'm talking to somebody, my focus is on just talking to that person and quite honestly just understanding what is it that we do to do in our own professional spaces and how we can work together. The one advice that thought, take it as you will, that I've always had is, please do not be transactional. Yes, at the back of our heads, obviously it's about what is it that we can do with this connection, but don't lead with it, because people can smell ingenuity. You being ingenuine. I definitely can from a mile away, and that's precisely why I don't engage that much with everybody, because for me it's an investment of time and energy, right? So when I am making connections, of course, when I came into Kautilya, I had a community. I had worked already. I had my network, and the policy as a space is pretty small. I meet somebody I know everywhere. I tend to. But one of the things that I also do is and it's something that I definitely want. I've moved around the country a lot. I've lived in different places. So I want to have a community of mine there. And I sort of seek out different places that are a community that do something, and that work towards a cause, which is probably not my job, like my day job. I do something aside from what I do in my job. Right? So and people can vouch for this. Whoever knows me well knows I don't have time. I keep myself very busy. I'm working all the time. But the point is, I'm doing different things. I meet different people. And in that search of different communities, I come across people who are working in the same space, working in a different space, but then can also work with me and collaborate on different things. And that is how my network has grown. Because I know a lot of people are not inherently very comfortable reaching out to people, right? And while cold calling, cold emailing works, there are plenty of people who hate being bombarded on LinkedIn. So please be very careful as to how you reach out. When you're writing to somebody, be sincere about it. Not that you have to use flowery language, but just your sincerity of why you want to connect with somebody, right? Why should somebody working at a VP level or a CEO level connect with you? What is it?
Correct.
What is in it for them, right? So there should be some. I mean, VP CEO is an example, but anybody for that matter, right? There should be some kind of buy-in to them. So be very, very sincere when you're writing to them about why you want to connect. Don't be cliche. Cliches don't work. They might work with a few people, but for most it doesn't. So they will not even give another look to your message or your email. So yeah, as authentic as is possible. So when you're writing to them, calling, I don't know how many people cold call nowadays. But yeah, emailing and LinkedIn is something that you just have to be very careful about as to how you reach out to people. But yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Find your style of networking, I would say.
That would be a takeaway from your experience. This actually reminds me of Mr. Pratik Kavan when he actually came to our college when we were, just having our introduction round here at Kautilya. I remember him telling us that when you're networking, just be mindful of the fact that uh, it should not be like what do you want from the other person. It should not always be like that, but what you have to offer to that person. You also have to offer something and always be open to offering things to the other person. Yeah.
That's what I
So
meant by
that,
saying working together, because there has to be some mutual benefit out of that connection as well, right? You can't always just be taking from the other one.
True. Okay. Okay. So I actually have this interesting question from anonymous attendee who asks, do we need to sacrifice our me time and sleep time to do masters at KSPP? I'm asking this because I heard that we have to spend whole college hours for class there, and we have a lot of assignments post college hours. So, what were your experiences? Rehat, would you like to go first?
I think, in my opinion, I did not really have to, I did not really have to spend like a lot of time post the college hours. I think the best part about Kautilya was the fact that since it's a residential program, you really get to imbibe or you really get to absorb everything in that space for those entirety of 2 years. So
Right.
I think you also have that flexibility. I mean,
Mm.
the fact that it has world class amenities at your disposal. I mean, you have a gymnasium there, you have recreational activities. I think you can also, Purvasha, I think you can also add here about
Yeah.
how your experience goes
Yeah.
into studying at Kautilya. I mean, it's not that in. I mean, it is intensive. It's an intensive program, and it does require a lot of your energy because it's a master's program. But then I think
Mhm.
if you know how to prioritize what really matters at the moment, I think you will be able to find out time for yourself also.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Ashwarya, what were your experiences?
Yeah. So I think what we have to remember, I think, to also Rahat's point, that a master's program is definitely an upgrade, right? And it's an upgrade in every sense. Yes, it will be stressful. Yes, you will have work to do. Yes, you have to do assignments after class. In class, you're precisely learning concepts, you're learning topics, you're learning methods and how to be skillful. But if you don't do your assignments, you won't be able to apply them. That's as simple as it, right? We've done this in our bachelor's, we will do it in our master's. It'll keep happening. Even when you go for your job, you will do it. You will have to work through everything. But and I'll tell you what, when I was a student, still I am a master procrastinator. I used to wait, I used to take my time, but I would finish it by the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to know your strength of being able to complete your assignments on time. uh, you can test it, it will take you a couple of months, but you will find the sweet spot. You will know if it's an assignment that needs to be submitted by 11:59 p.m. at night. If you start by 10 o'clock, you can finish by 11:30, 11:59, or you need to start by 6 in the evening, only then you'll finish it by 11:59. It's how you learn your rhythm and you manage time, right?
True.
I slept royally.
Mm-hmm.
I have not had to sacrifice anything. I have hung out with my friends. Yes, there were times when, if we were working with tight deadlines, we had, let's say, for whatever, we have visiting professors, we have to
Yeah.
accommodate their schedule, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At that point of time, you have to buck up, you have to buckle up, you have to put in the hours, you have to sleep a little less. But then the point is, after 2 years, you get to do wonderful things. So it's a very small um sacrifice. I don't know if I use that. It's investment for me. That I don't sleep 2 extra hours. It's okay. I can make it up later. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I'm sitting in class the entire day. I'm done very soon. I have the rest of the day with me. How I plan it is on me, right?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I think, but the reality of it is it's going to happen. So
Yeah.
you have to just be prepared that for when it happens, you are ready to
Right. You're right.
put in the time and the
Mm-hmm.
effort.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. So we have another question by Tanushi Mathur, who asks, this question is for you, Rehan. How were you able to get internships in sustainability in private sector while being a political science student? I want to break into consulting as well, but I am a psychology undergrad. Which internship should I go for, and how can a master's in public policy help me in this?
Right. So, wait, I don't get the question. Um, uh, Tanishi, right. So I really did not break into an internship into the sustainability sector. It just happened so that I was actually looking for internships in the gender sector, like in the space of gender and policy or gender and climate. But it just happened so that my project at the United Nations was a lot focused on uh, the impact of climate change in areas like Ladakh, or how climate change impacts persons with disabilities. I think I only used it to my advantage uh, to further fulfill my interest basically into the gender space. So that's how I correlated my capstone project also on climate and gender, and researched on how climate change impacts women in the agricultural sector pertaining to areas of Haryana. So I think I leveraged on that, and there was also an elective that was being offered on ESG. Unfortunately, I did not take up that, but the resources did come in handy while I was really networking with people, and I applied to EY. And surprisingly, I mean, it's interesting to know that they also had. I mean, initially or originally, I did not have any idea that EY does have a sector pertaining to climate change, but once I really got to know about it, I used the resources to prepare for my interview. And the opportunity only came in through networking. So I'd say the more you leverage that uh, opportunity at Kautilya, I think it's only going to benefit you that way. So, I mean, stay focused on where you want to go. It doesn't really, uh, I mean, I think it only falls into place. Everything just fell into place for me. I really believe into that. But do keep applying for internships whenever you get time. I think explore opportunities. There are a lot of think tanks that are offering um, internship opportunities into the climate sector. So once you get, I think, exposed to it, leverage it to your advantage, and then you can pitch it for whenever you want to get placement on.
Mhm,
I hope
mhm.
that answers.
Yeah, actually, it does. So Rehat, because you mentioned about reaching out to people and giving a lot of interviews to crack to get into the professional journey. I have one question, which says, do you have any tips? How do you approach the interview process? Can you share some tips for the same? Aishwarya, would you like to go first on this?
I mean, I'm trying to be as discreet about it as possible because I ideally shouldn't be talking about this right now. But from my experience, what is important is to remember why you're doing this, right? Um,
Right.
and whatever questions are asked are usually to sort of understand that. Because at the end of the day, through the 2 years, what becomes important is for you to circle back to that question. It's not an interview question for the sake of the interview, because the 2 years, what you do when you go through the grind, it is a grind. Any master's, degree is a grind. You need to remember why you're doing this, and to Rehet's point, that's how you make decisions as to what you want to take up next, right? When you're mindful of why you're doing this, you know what electives you want to pick next, what is going to help you in your journey, who you're going to reach out, and why you're reaching out to them. So I think keeping that at the center of your interview experience will be very, very helpful. But because rest of it is very, very basic in terms of what you submitted and what the interviewers then want to know more about. But yeah, keep this at the center of it all. That will be helpful for you.
Okay. Rehat, do you have anything to add? Any tips from the consultancy
I think
sector?
I think I take that later. I take that up later. I just want to like put it out for the freshers per se. I mean, in case anybody wonders what the career is going to look like after completing an MPP course or after getting uh, the degree in public policy. I think I had my own set of fears before applying to Kautilya because at the moment it was just newly established. I mean, we did not have a placement brochure to look at or have that confidence in ourselves as to कैसा होगा आगे uh, opportunity होगी नहीं होगी placement लगेगी नहीं लगेगी. So I guess I just took that leap of faith and felt that if the advisory board members, it looks as strong as who, I mean, the professionals that they are, I don't think it would ever um, land us in a wrong space. So
Mhm,
I think having that leap of faith and whatever you do, just put your best intention into whatever you do. So
mhm,
I think that was something that really helped me. I mean, as a fresher, before I was looking out for jobs, I was immensely scared. I didn't know what I would land into, and I didn't know if I would have a very strong career. But
Mm-hmm.
I could only connect the dots and my internship experiences, whatever I had, big, small, or could be irrelevant to anybody else. But it's just how you connect the dots and how you put it out. I mean,
Right.
when I interviewed for EY, um,
Mm-hmm.
the interviewer did not know about public policy. I mean, they had no clue about it. So it's just how I put it out about public policy and the connection that it draws to sustainability and ESG. I think
Mm-hmm.
don't be scared to, connect the dots, and if it is going to sound
Mm-hmm.
relevant to anybody else, it's what you put out
Mm-hmm.
and how you present it. So I think as long as you know how to do that, I think nobody has anything to question.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Thank you, Rehat. So I think we have time for one last question, and I would just like to take this question. So this person asks, "Hello, I'm in final year of law school and public policy is something I stumbled upon while looking for alternatives to law. I have little to no idea about public policy except for what is presented on the surface, but it is something I want to pursue further. So do I take a drop year to prepare properly for the college to get selected, or should I just go for it?" I think it's relevant because many times we think that when we are uh, preparing for some postgraduate courses, we take a drop year to prepare for it, like management or other things. What do you guys have to say about taking a postgraduate course in public policy?
Please just go for it. Drop yours. What is going to happen? What's the worst that's going to
Right,
happen? It's you will be where you are, right? It's not like you're losing from where you stand.
right.
And it's not that difficult, very
Mm-hmm.
honestly, because
Yeah.
I didn't have public policy, political science background. I had a BBA. I worked in Teach for India, but I didn't know anything about public policy. What I talked about is what I felt needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And what came, like I said, I think a lot of questions that I saw is just that about how do I get into public policy, or will it be helpful, and how do I crack this space? Um, I think first definitely is, do you know why you're coming into this program? What is it that you want to do with this degree, in the sense of not the job, but what is it the difference that you want to make when you're done with the degree?
Right.
If that is clear in your head, please just do the application. It doesn't matter. They will, people understand, like I said, intention. People understand the drive and the determination to make a change. Uh,
Yeah.
Most of us did not come, at least in my batch, did not come with a public policy understanding. Yes, there were a lot of people who had attempted UPSC, so they had
Mm-hmm.
a background understanding of a lot of things that were happening in class. I did not. To be absolutely honest, the first 6 months I had an insane imposter syndrome. I definitely thought I was an admissions mistake. I say that till date. I've said this to Dean also, because that's what it felt like. I really felt out of place for a good part of my first year. But you get the hang of it. You eventually will
Yeah.
get there. So it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Just apply.
Mm-hmm.
Do your best. If it's a subpar application, then it's just not worth it. But do your best with the application you're giving.
Yeah.
Make absolute sense in your head first as to what is it that you're wanting to do, why you're going towards this. Once that is clear, everything is going to be fine. Like I said, you don't need to know everything when you come into a master's degree. You will leave learning a lot. So
That is true. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm personal opinion, drop years don't make, I mean, unless you absolutely have to take it, there is no other way out. Definitely
Mm-hmm.
do it. But then, I mean, why? Why waste time?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
might as
Yeah.
well apply and see you'll learn something out of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. Okay. So we'll just take this one last question. So this person asks, how is public policy helpful in private sector? Very briefly, is it bringing in incentives offered by the government to the branch that the private sector employs? Uh, is the question clear? Rehat, would you like to take this one up? How is public policy helpful in private sector? He wants to, or she wants to have insight on this very briefly? And is it bringing in incentives offered by the government to, I think, to the private sector or to private sector employees? Because you're working in the private sector here, do you think what is the, I think the person is trying to ask what is the convergence or where can we see a convergence between government policies and private sector when we talk about public policy?
Not quite sure how to draw a link between
Uh,
that, but
yeah.
see, okay, I just be honest when I put this out, but my entire work does not always pertain to public policy. I mean, it
Mm,
it is apparent that government policies or government regulations do impact the sector that I'm working in. But then, even in the ESG domain, there is a distinction between a private sector and a government sector. I mean,
right.
ESG is not only about working in the private sector. There are companies that are also focusing on taking up government projects and helping out the government in the sustainability sector. So I think one of our batchmates is also working um, with EY, but on government projects and helping them out achieve, uh, I think, in the completion of their projects. So in EY also, I could only, if I can introduce this, but in EY also, we have a space where we are working on the ESG sector only in the sustainability domain, but helping out our government. So
Right.
even though mine pertains to the private sector, but yes,
Mm-hmm.
we can look out for if you want to wish to engage with the government sector, you can join private organizations as well.
Yeah. 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 Because if one of your clients could be the government, and
Yeah,
that is how you
definitely,
collaborate and work with the government. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Aishwarya, so in terms of the education
Yeah.
sector, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, see, when you do policy, when you start studying policy, you will understand there are three main actors, stakeholders, aside from others that you will work with, which we in Hindi say Samaj, Sarkar, Bazar, right? State, market, and society. So when you talk about public policy, it is not only about the Sarkar, right? It is about how society interacts with the policies, how it is
Mm,
impacting the society, how
mm,
private sector engages with the society when these policies are concerned, how, like
yeah.
in Rehet's case, how is the private sector engaging with the government, how is the government engaging with the private sector, all these permutations and combinations keep happening, right? So I don't know if that's what the question was aiming at, but if they're thinking about policies within the private sector,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of corporations do DEI policies, for example, that is
Right.
that is also indicative to the higher impact that we're trying to bring inclusivity in our corporate India.
Right.
For
Right.
example,
Right.
that's an example,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? What you get to do, and I mentioned this when we started off with the AMA, explaining my experience, is you get to also sort of give implementable recommendations to the government if government is what you're looking at, right? If
Mm,
you're not looking at anyone else, you can give implementable recommendations to the government from what's being practiced as a policy, right?
mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about just incentives. That's a very, very small part, if at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
depends on the job that you're doing.
Right.
And I understand where all of y'all are coming from. Before you join the sector, it feels like there is a black and white answer. There isn't, sadly. Public policy as a space is still evolving. And for me, especially in my experience so far, I've been working for 2 years in as a lead for policy and strategy now. It's a beautiful playground where I get to be as creative as I want to be, and I do it on a day-to-day basis. I'm not just saying it. So there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do when you are in the private sector, but you need to be. It depends on what job you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Consultancies have a way of looking at it. My job is a different way of working with it, but I mean, it's not disconnected if that's
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
if that's what you're going for. But
Right.
yeah, it's applicable everywhere. So my only, I think, parting thought would be don't have a narrow definition of public policy or what you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you make of it, and it's true, even if it is a very
Mm-hmm.
cliched sentence. It is absolutely true. It's what you make of it. That's what I'm doing on every single day. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for those beautiful insights, Aishwarya. Just one last important question by Vaishnav, who says, I'm a BTech CSE student. I'm thinking to join KSPP to do MPP because I think for my future plans of getting into government, in being a person to push changes for the technical policies, data policies, AI policies for the country. Is it the right choice to join my plans here?
Sure, why not? I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, for sure. If I mean, see, if this is the uh, like the core of what you want to do, definitely. I think what you need to keep in mind is whatever opportunities are made available, mindfully use them. Because there are times when we want to take a break and we're like, no, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to attend this. Isme kya hi hoga? What are we going to get out of it? You know, those questions come. It's natural, but
Right.
the exposure, the expertise, the opportunities. If so, and I'm not exaggerating here when I say this. When people do talk about what I've done, what I've studied, if I'm from Kautilya School of Public Policy, and I've been working in policy for some time, people are interested to sort of know more about what is it that I do and what opportunities can be made available to me. So if you are interested in AI policy, it's the heated topic at this point across the world, not just in India.
Right.
Yeah, why not? You may just get the opportunity to work with somebody who's drafting a policy. And I think even states are working on it. So maybe if that's what you're doing, keep your eye on an internship with somebody who's working on an AI policy, and it doesn't just have to be the government sector. Again,
Right.
please keep your options very, very open. Grab onto the opportunity, it'll work out.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, Vaishnav, because many of my friends are also interested in technological policies, just data and AI policies. So we do have a lot of guest lectures coming in, and Kotela always try to accommodate interests and interests of their students. So if you go to the management and tell them about their about your interests or your passion, they would surely try to get a guest speaker from your domain, and you could collaborate with them, you could network with them. So Kotila does provide you with a lot of opportunities that way, and uh, Kotila is also trying to build a domain in technological sector. So we are going to have more things coming in for your interest area. So do apply for Kautilya, and MPP here would be a good choice for you. Rehat, do you want to add anything on this part?
Think Pushpa, I think Pushpa, you've summed it up pretty well. I mean, not sure on the AI part because not sure in a way that my expertise doesn't lie there. So I just don't find myself in a position that I could comment. But I think now, since you've mentioned that Kautilya is really bringing in a lot of guest speakers and with the opportunities that they have, I think if you can leverage that first, you will definitely find, I'm sure, with the exposure that you get and the intersectional approach that Kautilya offers,
Mm-hmm.
I use it to your advantage. It does make
Yeah.
it, yeah,
Yeah.
really
All right.
help.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. So now it's time to wrap up, guys. I'd just like to ask our audience if you have any other questions, you could contact Ranjita from our Kautilya website. And I would just like to thank our guests today. Aishwarya, thank you so much for taking out time from a busy schedule and answering all questions. And Rehat, thank you to you too. And I know it's a weekend. We do have plans during the weekend, but thank you so much for your time and patience. And it was a wonderful session, wonderful to listen to you guys. And thank you again. And thank you, our audience too.
Thank you, Purvasha, for
Purvasha.
moderating it well.
Yeah, you were a wonderful host, and thank you to all the attendees.
Yes.
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 All the best, everyone, whoever is applying. I
Yes.
hope all of you make it. The more the merrier.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much and good night. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.